A small mountain town gets a gripping terror from a werewolf who targets many young women. The news spreads until the police in the city have to work extra hard to find who the perpetrators are. At the beginning of the film, there is a couple. They are Palfrey and Brienne, a couple who are on vacation. Palfrey happens to have a house and they stay there. The plan is that they will go skiing the next day, but before that they go to a restaurant for dinner. That night, there were two people who seemed to be making a scene at the place where they were eating. It made Palfrey upset because it disturbed her dinner and was noisy. Palfrey was very brave to reprimand them. Even one of the men seemed to want to fight her, but luckily her other friend tried to let Palfrey eat in peace and left. The romantic dinner failed because her mood became bad. In the end, they returned home and relaxed. Palfrey prepared to propose to Brienne. Before that, Palfrey took a shower while Brienne relaxed outside. A few moments later, the atmosphere became quiet and silent. Palfrey tried to call Brienne, but there was no answer, until Palfrey found Brienne lying in a pile of snow in a very worrying condition. Her body was torn to shreds, leaving only a few body parts. Around Brienne's body, there were footprints similar to wolves, but this was bigger. While this man was named John, an alcoholic, and worked as a police officer. At that time, he was with his community. Then he got a call there was a sadistic murder case in their city. John and several police arrived at the scene, including Julia and Hadley, the chief of police in the city, who was none other than John's father. This was the first time they found a case that was quite terrible. The victim was almost unidentifiable because most of her body was destroyed. At first, they thought this was a case of rape and murder, but it seemed like this case was more than that. For years, Hadley had kept the city from problems and crime. Now his body is getting older, and many diseases are bothering him. John wants Hadley to rest at home, but Hadley refuses because she is still not sure about John's responsibility and performance. Moreover, this new case will make John a little difficult. While on the other hand, Julian tries to ask for information from two men who have problems with Palfrey. They do have problems with the victim's lover, but they did not commit any crimes. Not only John, now Julia also has to find answers to this case. John and his team try to find answers to the case that occurred. Although this is a new case, it seems that John's team considers this case a joke. If this case is not resolved properly, the name of the police will be tarnished and will reduce public trust. Gutierrez makes a joke that maybe the victim was eaten by a werewolf, but John does not believe in it. It is just an imagination and legend that cannot be proven for him. While on the other hand, this woman is named Hannah. She is a skier and is giving knowledge to her students. That night, Hannah asked permission from her friend that she would go home first, even though that night they were planning to have dinner together. But Hannah still wanted to go home. She said she was already being waited for by her ex-lover. When Hannah went to the car, she seemed to hear something around her, like someone was approaching her secretly. Then Hannah seemed to see a werewolf figure from the darkness attacking her. Hannah did not survive and was torn apart. This is the second case. John is increasingly required to be able to find the perpetrator. John is very frustrated and confused to find the perpetrator. Even when at Hannah's funeral, one of Hannah's family asked for justice and asked where the police were when this happened. Why they still can't find the perpetrator. When asked what strategy they should do, John was confused. He showed more of his emotions, and that made Hadley even more convinced that John was still not ready to be a good police officer. John was once married and had a daughter named Jenna, but it seems like their relationship is not going well. Lately, John often leaves Jenna alone at home. It is his mother who is often there for him. John is busier with his work. Meanwhile, there is a man living on the hill with a fairly concerning condition. A wolf is outside his trailer. Who knows who the man is? John will not give up so easily to handle the case. He and Julia go to Palfrey's house to ask for information from him. Palfrey actually doesn't want to discuss this problem anymore because it will only remind her of Brienne. Palfrey instead questions the police's work on this case. Why hasn't the perpetrator been found until now? This is just a small town, and until today, they still haven't gotten an answer. When John was about to leave, Palfrey asked John if he found the perpetrator not to arrest or put him in jail. Once John found the perpetrator, shoot him. Then on the other hand, there was a woman named Liz with her child eating at a small restaurant. Then, not long after, a man approached Liz while asking about her child. The man seemed to just want to make small talk with Liz, but Liz felt something was wrong. The man kept talking until Liz felt uncomfortable. When Liz tried to call the police, the man was gone. Liz gave the information to the police, and Liz was sure that the man was the perpetrator. The most obvious characteristic of the man was tall and thin. John not only sought information from Liz, it turned out that many other people's testimonies had seen the characteristics described by Liz. In addition to taking care of the case, John also took care of Hadley, who was old and sick. John kept asking his father to be at the retirement home and enjoy his days, but Hadley still didn't want to. Even though there was an argument between them, John gave in the end. Meanwhile, Liz, who was on her way home, was blocked by a deer carcass in the middle of the road. Liz tried to see, and there were wolf footprints. Then, not long after, near her car, Liz saw the figure of the werewolf. Liz became the umpteenth victim. Strangely, when John looked for traces of the werewolf, it was gone. Even the wolf footprints on the deer also disappeared. John is back to being his old self, drunk and stoned because he can't handle this case. Then, we are shown again a man who lives in the trailer with a wolf tattoo. Is he the perpetrator? John, who initially did not believe that werewolves existed, might have to reconsider it. John went to the library to learn how werewolves find their victims. The most common thing is that werewolves often act when the moon is full. Werewolves will tear their prey to pieces until almost nothing is left. Every day, John is increasingly busy with this case. He has to find many sources of information and the possibility of where this crime came from. Unbearable emotions make John unable to think clearly. This case makes the name of the police in the city the spotlight of many news. John and the other police decided to make night watch and patrol every corner of the city. People were asked not to leave the house, especially women. But Jenna did not obey the order. Jenna and her lover met in the car. Jenna then saw a woman giving her a code that they were in danger. And sure enough, the werewolf appeared trying to attack Jenna. The police got information from local residents. John rushed to the location and tried to shoot the werewolf. Unfortunately, the werewolf escaped. John was surprised that Jenna would be the next victim. Why was Jenna outside the house? There was a fight between them. Jenna did this because she didn't get attention from her father. In addition to almost losing Jenna, John lost Gutierrez. He became a victim of the werewolf. The longer this case was unsolved, the more it made John stressed and lost his way. Then one day John got information from Julia that they had found the perpetrator. A man who lived in the trailer with a wolf tattoo was found dead. Because the perpetrator has been found, John returned the evidence from the residents who were asked for information. Some were annoyed with John, and some were nice to him because they had found the perpetrator, although most were annoyed with John. Meanwhile, Julia was called by Palfrey while saying that Palfrey found something like a syringe in her house. It seemed like the item fell when John and Julia went to her house a few days ago. Suddenly, Julia felt John was in danger. John was at the house of a resident named Paul. He wanted to return the evidence file to him. John entered Paul's house and asked for his signature as proof that the file had been received by Paul. Paul greeted John but didn't stand up. He just sat in his chair. After chatting enough with Paul, John decided to go home. But just in front of Paul's house, John felt something was wrong. John knocked on Paul's door again and asked Paul to stand up. Paul thought John was joking. And in the end, when Paul stood up almost 2 times as tall as an ordinary human, it turned out that Paul was the werewolf. John asked for help from the police. John then went into Paul's house to look for him. John fought with Paul, but he was outmatched. Even John was stabbed by Paul. Julia came and made Paul try to run away from them. John, who was still strong enough to stand, tried to chase Paul into the forest. Again and again, John was defeated by Paul. Luckily, Julia was on time and shot Paul from behind. John remembered Palfrey's words to finish off the werewolf. John then shot his gun right into Paul's head until the werewolf didn't move anymore. A few months later, Jenna was in the campus dormitory. Now she is in college. John also survived the incident. Julia was promoted. John decided to retire from his job and focus more on his family.